the Cubs won the World Series. It feels like God is kind of settling all outstanding debts before the end of the world. You know, the Cleveland got theirs when the Cavs won, but then he kind of took them and he restored them right back to their place as losers. You know, like they were up 3-1 in the World Series, instant karma. You know, LeBron comes back from 3-1. The Indians are up 3-1. Hey, motherfuckers, you're still cursed. This is just a reminder. And I'm glad Bill Murray won and everything. Like, it was a good World Series. Either way, there was going to be some relief for a highly oppressed region, you know. I was coming back from a business trip yesterday, and 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm going through Homeland Security or whatever the fucking TSA is. So I print out my boarding pass, and I notice my boss in Columbus, Ohio had bought the tickets, and I noticed that not only had my boss spelled my name wrong, M-A-T-H-E-W, rather than M-A-T-T-H-E-W, but he had switched the order of my names. So on my boarding pass, it said Matthew James, Proctor. The Homeland Security lady, like, looks at my ID. She's, like, starting to eye me kind of suspiciously, and she's like, well, do you have a document that has your middle name on it? So I hand her my passport. She calls over, like, her supervisor. Then her supervisor's like, you know, they're like conferring about it for a second. Then I got to go over to this other guy. This other guy has to like fill out some kind of report. You know, like he gets on the phone to his, I don't know, the FBI or whatever, you know, the Office of Homeland Security. And I mean, if I was high, it would have been a fucking nightmare. And the whole time I'm thinking, like, God, is there any kind of, like, weed residue on my bag? Like, is there anything, like, if they find out about my public access TV show, you know, and Donald Trump becomes the president, like, they could throw me in jail forever for just being kind of like a drug addict subversive, you know? And I'm just, you know, I'm trying to be just as blank as possible, just as neutral as possible, as cooperative as possible, to kind of play upon my status as like a nice white boy from middle America. So she's like, well, they're going to give you an extra pat down, then they're going to rub you with the wand, then they're going to go through your bag kind of like, you know, more hardcore than they would normally. You know, so like I go through the you know, x-ray machine, where you put your hands up like this. Then they, like, wand my hands with this fucking thing. They give me, like, the security pat down where the guy's like, I'm about to go into a sensitive area. I'm going to use the back of my hand. You know, so he rubs kind of the inside of your legs, like the back of his hand and shit. You know, at the very least, they could have, like, made me miss my flight or something, you know? Or I would have had to stay another night in San Francisco, or, you know, worst case scenario, they find out I'm a fucking backyard wrestling revolutionary, and they torture me to death under the Trump regime, the trumpenreich, which is what I'm really here to talk about. I'm here to talk about the trumpenreich, the coming of Trump, and how in the last couple days shit has gotten real strange. I mean, the whole situation has just intensified, and there seem to be forces meddling in the election in a way that is just bizarre and conspiratorial. You know, it does feel like the rumblings of a coup, you know, and I think a lot of these kind of like people who have wanted to overthrow the American government for a long time are seeing their opportunity in Trump. And they're putting their energies behind it. Because since this FBI emails thing, Hillary's percentage of chance of winning has dropped like every single day by like a lot. She went from being 90%, now she's at 65%. And my home state of Ohio flipped red like hard, which is shocking to me. I read something about how, I'm not sure if it was WikiLeaks, but there's a lot of Trump people within the FBI who are sort of tampering with the election by, you know, of course, the story is that the FBI, just James Comey guy, reopened the investigation on Hillary's emails because of, you know, their involvement with the Anthony Weiner trial. As it, you know, like, it just, it's surreal. The dude's name is Anthony Weiner. Like, if the world ends because of a guy named Anthony Weiner, that will just be the cosmic joke enacted. The email thing is such a non-story. You know, it's just it just sounds bad if you don't read that closely. You know, like, oh, she's got these corrupt emails. And the truly kind of stupid thing about this Are the Donald forum is it seems to be, I mean, it's a bunch of insane Fox News kind of like fanboys who are internet trolls. It's actually quite scary the way that they talk. Like, they use this kind of hashtag in this kind of revolutionary cry of MAGA. Make America great again. Like, it's in all their emails, and there's just like this fervor, and all these guys are like, I love you, because they really do feel like they're going to bring the U.S. government down. And I read some article the other day about how conservative think tanks used to plant stories in small, reputable newspapers so they would travel upwards. So they would plant a story, you know, for instance, about Hillary's emails in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, because it was easy to kind of get it in there, and then it would get picked up by a national bureau and distributed. And now what's happening is through this Reddit forum, all these MAGA guys are posting these outrageous claims about Hillary Clinton and how they're running like a human trafficking ring. So the email thing to me just seems like a complete red herring. Like, there's not really anything there, and it's traveling upwards, you know, traveled upwards all the way to the FBI. The thing that really freaks me about Trump, particularly in the light of my airport security kind of nightmare, was how, like, pro-torture he is. You know, he talks about how, like, not only are we going to use waterboarding, but we're going to use a lot worse. And, you know, maybe it's paranoid to think that they're actually going to get their way, but, like, the way that the police forces are arming, and the FBI is in on it suddenly, and the whole thing at Standing Rock, it's insane. It's like watching some kind of portal into history just kind of open up in front of you. You know, it's like watching Little Bighorn or something through Facebook. Like, it's this standoff that, and how all those buffalo showed up, you know, like during the middle of this standoff, you know, fucking thousands of wild, great American buffalo or whatever they're called, like, show up to this thing just like out of the spirit link or whatever, you know. It does seem like some kind of sign. You know, the Cubs won the World Series, for Christ's sakes, and the Standing Rock thing, it's just a replay. I mean, it's sort of this weirdly not lethal replay, you know, like, it's not like they're massacring these Indians in any kind of mortal way, but they're shooting them with rubber bullets and fucking spraying them down with mace. I mean, it's psychically violent, and it's playing out in images, you know. I think what's going on there is incredibly noble, and I wish I could be a part of it, you know. Part of the reason why the polls have evened out over the last couple weeks is because Donald's just been kind of laying low. You know, he's, rather than sort of like putting his own sort of unbecoming monstrous personality out there, he's just being invisible and letting them destroy Hillary. You know, I don't think that anybody is more pro-Donald than they were, but I think the whole point of, like, stoking this email story and kind of aggravating the populace about it. I mean, you saw Ohio just completely tip. You know, all those people in rural Ohio who maybe were going to stay home, now they're going to vote against Hillary.